Hi everybody, I'm Mike Garska with Success Tool Chest and findamentor.com. Welcome to this Wednesday's Help Me Communicate, where I help you become a better communicator or build a better atmosphere in your workplace. Today we're going to talk about how to reduce and prevent gossip in the workplace and what to do and how to deal with it directly if you need to. Do you agree that having a positive work environment is better than having a negative work environment? Of course we do. Do you agree that gossip has a negative effect on a work environment? Of course. And do you want to work in a positive work environment or a negative work environment? You want to work in a positive work environment. Now, the first step to creating a positive work environment is to actually build that positive work environment and keep it so strong, like a garden or like a beautiful front lawn where your grass is healthy and thick and looks beautiful. It's deep green and it's just a really healthy lawn. And when you have a really healthy lawn, the weeds don't get in and the lawn stays healthy. So the first step in having a real healthy work environment is to create that healthy work environment. And one of the things to do to create a healthy work environment is to reduce and curb the gossip when it happens. Now, gossip happens all the time. It's a natural thing that humans do. And I do believe that it's not a healthy process. One of my favorite books, Grow Rich with Peace of Mind by Napoleon Hill. And he has a chapter in there where he talks about the 26 enemies in the jungle of life that prevent us from having peace of mind and growing rich. And one of the most difficult enemies to defeat in our jungle of life, and everybody goes through this jungle of life where we have these 26 enemies. And one of the biggest enemies is gossip. And so I read that book about 30 years ago. And so I've always tried to avoid gossip and keep it to a minimum. And that's been my kind of philosophy. But the reality is gossip happens in workplaces, and it happens and it affects them negatively. And that's whether it's a predominantly male work environment or a female work environment. It happens on construction sites. It happens in the industrial world. It happens in office environments. Gossip is a common thing. And the most important thing to do as a business is to have a policy in your policies and procedures for dealing with gossip. I was working on a drilling rig once, about 30 years ago. And it's amazing to me how fast gossip travels. This is an interesting story because what happened was one of your top figures on a drilling rig is the actual driller, the guy that controls the drilling rig. And in this situation, when you're drilling, they have a big layer of pipe going down into the ground. At the end of that pipe is a drill bit. And it's that drill bit at the end of the pipe that drills the hole. And sometimes if you don't do things right, with the driller, they'll twist that pipe off of the drilling bit. And then you have to pull all the pipe out of the ground and put a fishing tool in to get the drill bit out so you can put a new bit on the pipe and then start drilling again. And so it's very, very costly. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars to change those bits in some cases. And so a driller made a mistake, twisted off, is what they called it. And it was amazing to me. Within 24 hours, all the crews on a rig 24 hours, 700 miles away were talking negatively about gossiping about this driller who made this big mistake. I was talking to the drilling superintendent, the main guy, the boss of the company in Canada here, and he said, Mike, if I fired this guy, then he's going to go to work for my competitor, and he's going to take that $200,000 mistake, and he's not going to make it for the competitor. And so then I'm losing my training costs by firing this guy, and then he's going to go to work for my competitor, and that competitor is going to take advantage of my training costs. He says, if I keep this guy working here, the other drillers are going to find out about it. They're going to learn from his mistake, and so all my drillers are going to learn from this guy's mistake. So I'm going to turn this adversity into a benefit by getting all the drillers in the company to learn from this mistake. It made sense to me. Recently, I've been working with construction companies for the last 15 years, consulting on information and communication flow systems and helping companies create better work environments. And with one construction company, we had a situation where there was a lot of negative gossip going on from one site to the next. And we had crew members talking negatively about superintendents on other sites. And then the superintendents on the one site would buy into the gossip. And then when we had to send workers from one site over to this other site, they went there with negative ideas about this superintendent or a lead hand on the other crews, and it started the whole relationships off negatively, and it was having a big negative effect on our work environment. And so as a company, we had the client put into place a gossip policy and gave their leaders some tools with how to deal with gossip when it happened. Now, when the gossip was about another superintendent, the first thing we did is we had the superintendent stop the gossip on his own site right here, right now, and then call the other superintendent and say, here's the stuff that's going on. If there's truth to this, then you need to fix this in your processes and procedures so that you stop this negative energy from going from site to site about you. And we would then have a talk with the individual that was spreading the gossip and make sure that they stop that, assured them that we have dealt with the issue with the person that they were talking about, spreading the gossip about, and asked that person that was spreading the gossip to stop it. And it worked well. Recently, about 3-4 weeks ago, one of the workers on a site had heard that a superintendent from another site said something negative about this worker from another worker, and there was no truth to that. So the superintendent that heard the rumor going, what he did, the first thing he did was talk to the individual and said, okay, I don't believe that this is true, but I'm going to get to the bottom of it. Let's stop talking about it. He phoned the other superintendent and said, this is the story that's going around. I think it's appropriate for you to phone this worker that thinks that this gossip's going, apologize to them, and clarify exactly what you said to the other worker. And that's what they did. And it stopped the gossip in its tracks. And what happened out of that is the entire work crew appreciated that their leaders took the matter under control and actually fixed it by dealing with it directly and stopping it in its tracks. Now, if there's some truth to the gossip, then it's an opportunity for us to turn adversity into benefit by finding out that, okay, this happened, there's some negative information going around about this person, so now we're going to talk to this person and find out how much of that information is true, and the stuff that's true about their mistake, we're going to give them a process for fixing that so they don't make that mistake again. Gossip's typically, the person that starts the gossip, their intentions are basically, to make things better, to stop the mistakes from happening, and that's why they start talking about it. I was watching a show about 10 years ago, and I was quite surprised, but it was a talk show, and a person was talking about gossip and how what gossip actually does is it weeds out people from a community. So when a whole community starts talking negatively about one individual, that individual either bucks up and falls in line with what the community values are, or they leave the community. And so gossip actually is a way of weeding things out, but it has a real negative effect in a work environment. And when there's lots of negative talk and gossip going on in a work environment, what happens is people don't feel like coming to work in the morning. And when they do come to work, they're not as productive. Their customer service isn't as good. The way they deal with suppliers isn't as positive. And it has a negative effect on the company. So as a company, we want to keep the energy positive, and the leaders need a policy in place for how to deal with gossip, and they need to be given tools to deal with that gossip. So they need communications courses if they have a hard time dealing with sensitive and difficult conversations. It's a good idea for companies to have an outside consultant that will come in and mediate difficult conversations if they don't have somebody within their organization that has those skills themselves. So if you're a company owner and there's nobody in your organization that has the skills to mediate difficult conversations, then hire a consultant to come in and deal with those 3 or 4 or 5 times a year that they happen. But if you build a healthy culture, then you'll have less and less of these crucial conversations that need to happen. Have your leaders take effective communications courses so they know how to deal with those crucial conversations. And then put your policy in place that leaders are the front line for dealing with negative gossip, And when it's about a worker, that leader is responsible to talk to that worker that's spreading the gossip and stop it. And they're responsible to talk to the worker that the gossip is about. And when there's truth to that gossip, to coach that employee on not making that same mistake again, find out what they could do next time to avoid making that mistake. And the adversity or the benefit that comes out of that adversity is we prevent that mistake or that negative stuff that happened from happening again. So that's how you take the gossip, the negative energy about gossip, and turn it into a benefit. You plant the seed of making sure that the mistake, if it's true, doesn't happen again. And then you coach the other people that are doing that same position not to make that same mistake. So you can take the adversity of gossip and turn it into a benefit by coaching the person not to make those mistakes that the gossip is about. So that's how you deal with it on a preventative basis. Have a policy in place, give your leaders the tools that they need to have those crucial conversations to stop the gossip, and how to have those crucial conversations to coach the person that the gossip is about on how to not avoid that again from happening again. When gossip happens to me directly, there's a few things I can do. If you have the strength, the inner strength, ignore it and don't let the gossip affect your routine or affect your self-image. So if you have those powers to do that, if it's a real negative thing and it's really eating you up, then you want to report the gossip to an authority figure. Because if it's eating you up, the fact is that it's either untrue, so you want that reported to an authority figure so that they can stop the lies right now. If there is some truth to the matter, then you want to reflect on that and own it and say, okay, I did that. This happened. And here's what I'm doing to make sure that I don't make this same mistake and make it happen again. And when we confront it and deal with that in a direct and real manner, then other people will also learn from my mistake and not make that same mistake. Okay? So also, if there's untruth to the gossip, make sure you tell your friends and your colleagues so that when they hear that gossip, they have your side of the story before they hear it. And then when they do hear it, they can curb that gossip or stop it in its tracks because they can tell the truth of what happened from your perspective. The other option is to confront the source directly. Okay? If you have the communication skills to confront the source directly and stop it in its tracks, then do that. And the way to have that difficult conversation, take our contact communications course, and that'll help you, give you a full 7-step process for dealing with these crucial conversations. But I'm going to give you a quick outline on what we teach in that 7-step process. It's the contact process. But in that process, what we do is to navigate these crucial conversations is we use an awareness tool called the HIP, the Human Interaction Process, the HIP. And as we communicate as humans, we all go through this process, and the person I'm communicating with is going through it, I'm going through it. We sense something, we hear or we see something, or whatever we witness. When we hear and see things, we get a thought, and we have a thought process around what we just witnessed. Then we get a feeling. Then we get an intention out of that feeling, thought, and what we witnessed. We gain an intention, and then we choose our action. Now, the person who started the gossip, their action was to start this rumor or start talking about it, and their intention would have been to make it better for the company. Now, sometimes our intentions are good, but they have a negative effect. And gossip has that negative effect. It actually spreads negative energy. So the best thing that person could have done, instead of spreading gossip and talking to other people about it, would have been to confront the person who they're gossiping about directly and have the conversation direct. But that happens rarely in a gossip environment. They're starting to talk about other people. So if I'm going to now go back and confront this person because they didn't have the courage to confront me before they started telling other people, then I have to plan my conversation. The first step in dealing with a crucial conversation is to plan that conversation. Get some input, mastermind the plan, okay? So I got to have this conversation. How do you think I should approach it? And talk to 2 or 3 people, and then write your plan out, though. And in your plan, the process for dealing with conflict and crucial conversations is to be aware of my human interaction process. What did I hear and see? Write it down. Charlie said that you said this about me, so that's what I heard. When I heard Charlie say that, I had this thought process. I felt betrayed, or I felt frustrated, or I felt angry after I heard that. And so now my intention is to fix this and stop it in its tracks, so I have this direct conversation with you to stop this gossip. What did you witness that made you start this gossip train? And I would ask that person. So I share my human interaction process. Charlie said this to me. When he said that, I thought this, I felt this, and my intention is to stop this gossip, so I'm having this direct conversation with you. So I'm sharing my hip. Now I want to find out what your hip is. When you hear me say these things, what do you think? How do you feel? And what do you really want to come out of this? And you find that out. You might also ask that person, and this is all in your plan. If you have it all planned out, you have your piece of paper in front of you, you can follow your plan, and as things go off track in this conversation, you can come back to your plan and go back to it. And the process of dealing with crucial conversation is to share my hip and then find out what the other person's hip is. So when you witnessed what you witnessed, what were your thoughts? How did you feel? And what was your intention when you started this gossip train? When you hear me say these words right here, right now, what do you think? How do you feel? What's your intention? And we typically, as we explore each person's hip back and forth, and remember, everybody's human interaction process is as unique as our DNA. So what the other person sensed, heard, or saw, how they thought about it, how they feel about it, what their intention is as unique to them as is their DNA. And everybody's human interaction process is valid because it's real and true for them. Now, whether I agree with it or not doesn't matter. I still need to find out what it is so that we can start to explore the common ground. And they need to know what mine is so we can start to explore the common ground. So in having that crucial conversation, dealing with things directly, share your hip. What you saw, what you heard, what you witnessed, how you thought about it, what you felt about it, what your intention is. And then find out what the other person's hip is. What did they see and hear when they started the program? What are they thinking? And how are they feeling about when they saw that information and started the gossip? And what do they think and feel about what I just shared with them about dealing with this direct? And what's their intention? And it's typically in the intention that we begin to find the common ground and are able to negotiate what's going on. Now, if the gossip is partially true, then we talk about the truth part of it and tell what we're going to do to resolve the part that's true and what we're going to do to fix our mistakes. The part that's untrue, we're going to get clear on what's untrue and what's true, and we're going to put away the stuff that's untrue. So by having that direct conversation, exploring each other's hip, we can typically snub that nip that bud right in the butt there and stop it from growing and processing. So confront the other person directly using the human interaction process awareness tool, explore their hip, share your hip, do that back and forth until you find the resolution. The other thing you can do is make sure to stay away from people who gossip. That's one thing that I've done is I try to avoid people that gossip. When the gossip is about other people, I don't always take the gossip as true right off the bat. And I'll say that to the person, before I take this all as true, I should get the perspective of the other person. Don't pass the gossip along. If you want to have a positive effect on your work environment, make sure when you hear gossip, you stop it there and don't pass it any further. And maybe inform a supervisor or a leader or a person in authority to deal with it directly. And hopefully the company has a policy and a procedure in place for dealing with that negative gossip like I talked about. You might want to have an outside mediator or have somebody within the company that you bring in whenever these situations happen. When you know that there's partial truth to the gossip, don't make an exception. Still stop spreading it. Still stop the person and say, give them the tools for dealing with it. Here's our process for dealing with it. Report this to a person of authority when there's some truth to it and have them deal with it. And that's the best thing you can do. Get good at keeping secrets. Sometimes you hear things that really don't matter that much. And instead of spreading the negative information, just keep it a secret and encourage the other person to do the same thing. It's really important. And never start rumors yourself. When people come to you for gossip, change the subject. So one of the first things I do is I'll change the subject. If it's a real concerning thing that the gossip topic is about, I will report it to the authority figure. But the first thing I do is change the subject. Another thing that I might do is say something positive about the person that the other person is gossiping about. So we offer some balance to that conversation. Confront the gossip as politely as you can. Say, again, point out the positive things about the other person. Point out any the idea that there might be some missing information here, and this person might not have the whole story. That's often what I'll do. And talk about cultural differences. Sometimes cultural differences get in the way, but I always pass it on to the leaders so they can deal with it. Unless you have the strength to deal with it and the skills to deal with this gossip directly, pass it on to a leader, give it to them to deal with directly. And often that means bringing in both parties that are the person that the gossip is about and the person that started the gossip, and just putting all the stuff on the table. Again, in a mediation, I did help me communicate about how to mediate those difficult conversations. Again, we explore each person's hip to mediate that conversation. But we get it on the table, we stop it in its tracks, and that helps us keep a positive and strong work environment. And if we keep our work environment healthy, when those little weeds of gossip come out, we can pick them out. If we have the policies and procedures, pick them out quickly, and the lawn looks beautiful. If we don't deal with it, those weeds multiply and multiply and multiply, and soon the whole lawn is full of weeds and you don't even notice the lawn. The same thing will happen in your business. If you don't deal with these negative situations, soon they'll spread and get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you won't see the green grass anymore. You'll just see the weeds. So put your policies in place to prevent this stuff. Give your leaders the tools that they need to curb the gossip, stop it in its tracks, and deal with it. I'm not sure I shared this situation, but about 3 weeks ago, we had a guy, construction superintendent, say something negative about one of the workers. And so when the superintendent heard about it, he reported it. I'm going to repeat this again. I think I did say it, but it's important to repeat. He reported it directly to this co-superintendent. That co-superintendent phoned the worker that heard the gossip, put him straight on exactly what was said, and it put the whole thing to bed, and the negative energy never went from one site to the next. It was stopped in its tracks, and that helps keep the weeds out and keeps the work environments healthy. It is the leader's responsibility to guide those work environments to a healthy place, and it's your responsibility as an owner to make sure that your leaders have the tools to keep the work environment positive. And if everybody on the leadership team has that focus of keeping things positive, you will be able to pluck this gossip out quickly and keep your positive energy flowing in your organization. I hope you enjoyed today's Help Me Communicate. I will post the quick points on this talk later today. I'll also post all those 26 enemies. If you want to refer to those 26 enemies in your personal jungle of life and decide which ones you've defeated and which ones you still need to work on to defeat so that you can grow rich with peace of mind. Please like our page. Check out the Contact Communications and Masterminding program at Success Tool Chest. It's only an $89 program, cheaper than the price of a ticket to a concert or a pay-per-view of a good fight. And your communications, are your communications skills, is it worth it to you to spend $89 to become a really good communicator and to become a good mediator? I think so. Take our Contact Communications and Masterminding program and become a great communicator. Check out our free Human Interaction Process Effective Awareness tool, the HIP. It's a free download at Success Tool Chest. And that gives you the guideline for how people communicate. When we know how we communicate and how other people communicate it, it makes it easier to navigate those crucial conversations. So download that free HIP awareness tool. Go out and make it an awesome day. We'll see you next week. Thank you for being here, and cheers. Bye for now.